Namaste, a very good evening from City Book Leaders. Welcome you all for another special evening on a very enigmatic topic. We have with us Acharya Prashant ji. Thank you, Acharya ji, for your time. And thank you for giving this book to us. It is indeed very enlightening.
You're most welcome.
Yeah. So to share with all of you, Acharya Prashant ji is an ex-IIT-IIM alumnus. He's a noted author where he shared 60 plus books till now. He is also, there are also 10,000 plus videos. So while these numbers look whatever, but the true essence is that there is so much of wisdom and love flowing through him. And this all is an expression of that. We look up to Acharya ji with more guidance and hand-holding to all of us. Thank you, Acharya ji. I'd also like to share that today we got a news that the book has been Amazon bestseller, and today it's also topped the AC Nielsen charts. So this is an overwhelming response. Karma is a topic we all have heard, spoken, asked questions for a long time, and people have really loved the book. So Acharya ji, I'd like to ask you, what makes it so much loved by the audience?
We are beings that act. So you could say man is a working animal. Other life forms just perform mostly their biological perfunctory functions. Man, and by that I mean mankind, man and woman both. Man is the only one burdened with conscious choice. So we have to choose our actions. And at every point in life, we are acting in some way or the other. There is a choice involved every moment.
Indeed.
So that's the reason this is the most common question and also the most unanswered question. What to do, how to do, whether to do something, what to choose. So karma or action is therefore something always in everybody's mind. That's the reason why people have a natural affinity towards this topic. And I'm glad that they could find something of value in it, and they have been endorsing it, as you said, in good numbers. I hope something comes out of it.
I'm sure, and I think the most important thing is the direction that it might give to so many people. Because what I found very powerful in the book is you mentioned the focus should shift from the action to the actor.
Yes.
And that's very profound.
Yes.
Because most of us lead our life without even thinking about it.
Right.
The spotlight is on us.
Right. And the emphasis on the action comfortably shields the actor. In fact, that's the reason why the very cover page says, why all that you
Yes, I was just about to ask you that.
Yes. It's because the very emphasis on karma is misplaced. In an ideal world, the title would be karta, not karma. Karta, the doer, the actor.
Right.
Because that's the one of value. That's the one at the heart. That's the one in the driver's seat. That's the one we should focus on. Instead, karma hogs the limelight. It steals away all the attention. And even if you give so much attention to what to do, what not to do, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, that won't really take you very far, because the one at the center of all suffering, all mischief, all curiosity is not even being looked at. We, in our quest for action, we just ignore the actor. And interestingly, that's exactly what the actor wants, never to be looked at. When you look at the actor, its mischief gets called out, and it can no more remain the same. The ego does not like that. The ego is the actor.
Indeed. And the subtitle says, "Why everything you know about it is wrong." It is indeed very challenging. So, why did you put this subtitle for the book?
Because I love to engage with my audiences, and challenging them is one good way to do that. The book is written so that people read it. The book is written because there is a need for people to read it. And if we all remain complacent in our little personal worlds, that we are doing all right, our choices are all right, our actions are well placed, then why would anyone ever want to observe himself, have a relook, reconsider? That won't happen. So, yeah, I understand it's a bit in your face. It's brazen, we could call it, but probably that's the need of the hour. These are not times when we can just be stolid and indifferent and politely detached. So that's the reason why that kind of a thing had to be written.
Sure. So my early childhood memories of the word karma is when we saw the Mahabharata serial, and Krishna is giving the discourse to Arjuna, and he says, "Karam karo, phal ki ichha nahi karo." So that was the first introduction to karma, and that's how I think kids get introduced to it.
Great problem there.
Exactly. So I was coming to it. So that's how when you said this, and it's the chapter in the book, it got really hit hard.
Yep. It's a great problem when the very introduction to karma is on these lines.
Yeah.
What we are often told is, karma karo, phal ki ichha mat karo. Just immerse yourself into whatever you are doing and don't worry so much about the result.
Right.
The beginning itself is wrong. You cannot just immerse yourself into any random thing. The first thing that Krishna says is immerse yourself in the right action.
Right.
And the right action is defined by the fact that it has nothing for the doer, for the actor. So Krishna, in his own parlance, says, Arjun, act for my sake, which in other words is, don't act for your own sake. Don't act for your personal benefits. And that defines the right action. Now that the right action is defined, just keep on doing it without worrying about the outcome. So not worrying about the outcome, not thinking about the result, all that comes later. What comes first is the choice of the right action. And the choice of the right action is defined by the stake of the actor. If, as an actor, I do something for my own sake, for my own personal gratification, then it is guaranteed that I am moving in the wrong direction. I am moving in the direction in which my ego wants to propel me. And things are flat. So before we say just immerse yourself or man laga kar apna kaam karo, such things, what do we mean by apna kaam? When people say, I just give my 100% to whatever I do, it's horrible.
Or like you mentioned in the book, you do by passion. So that's the second way in which you go. So you're driven by your passion, and even that's not
exactly. Nishkam karma or right action is not defined by how passionate you are about it or how interested you are in it. None of that. Right action is defined by need, by kartavya, or to put it more classically, dharma. Do what you must do, not what you feel like doing, not what you are interested in doing, not what you are desirous of doing. Do what you must do. This mustness is at the heart of everything beautiful, dignified, valuable. Unfortunately, mustness is totally forgotten these days. You appreciate mustness?
I understand. Because when I read the book, I was comparing my own life journey, what work I did, what is my daily routine. And then you realize.
And we are living in an age where personal gratification is everything.
Yeah,
so mustness obviously not only takes a backseat, but actually goes out of the window.
Right.
right? Because mustness and personal will would initially necessarily be in conflict with each other. These two won't be aligned. It's only at later stages of spiritual journey does your personal will get aligned with mustness, with what you
Should do.
should do. No,
You're
no.
required to do.
Should is a moral imperative.
Okay. Yeah.
Mustness is beyond that.
It just happens
Yes,
in
people
that
often
time.
confuse mustness with shouldness.
Shouldness,
You know,
yeah.
there is this thing, I want, then I should, and then there is I must.
Right.
I want is my own desire, which is coming from my conditioning and such things. I should is a moral thing. It is coming from society and education and such things. I must is a thing of very high order. It's a spiritual thing. So this book is there to establish something that must rule, but unfortunately is relegated to the back seats of our personal theaters.
Acharya ji, but I also see a paradox in how we live our life. We get born, we get inducted in the societal norms, situations. We start living our life, and for a large part of the life, not all of us have the benefit to be aware of how we are living our life, and then we get into actions which become like a compulsion, and we continue to do that. Few of us get the opportunity to drift away from this. So, for a common man, firstly, how does he understand what is karma, what is right karma, what is karma? Is it only action or is it words, thoughts? So what is the algorithm for him to be aware?
It is not so difficult at all. While I fully concur with what you initially said, that given the way our society is, our families are, our education system is, we just keep drifting along. And yes, we do in that drift often take decisions that have very far-reaching effects, and obviously they are irreversible. And then one thing sits upon the other, and they get multiplied, and so much happens that just captivates us. All that is all right, but the thing is, wisdom is so easily available at every point in life, especially in India. The question, what to do, what to choose, what's worth living for, has been at the heart of all spiritual pursuit. So it's not merely about Krishna. You go to any of the scriptures, you go to sages, saints, seers, and you will get the same idea. It's not difficult at all. So if a person comes and says that this book feels very, very new, it means that there has been a lot of misguidance. The fellow has either never willingly gone to the great books that are so ubiquitous, so easily available, or he has been willingly choosing the wrong kind of teachers. He has gone to books, but the wrong kind of books. So either of the two cases happened. Otherwise, it's not difficult. I mean, you don't have to know Sanskrit. You don't have to follow philosophy. Even if you can go to the couplets of the very common sages, even the folk songs, the regional folk songs, even they are imbued with wisdom. So how can somebody say that the concept of right action has totally eluded him? But it's happening. So while at one hand I express surprise and disappointment, on the other hand I see it happening. Obviously it's happening, which means that there is an abundance of the false kind of teaching. And that's dangerous.
Sure. And in the book, it very clearly lays out how to choose the right action, will the right action give the right result, and lastly, action that reforms the actor. And across chapters, there is a lot of focus on why and what. But if somebody is in this vicious circle, he's in a loop. He's acting out of his condition, the results are wrong, he's again acting out of his condition. So it's a vicious circle for him. How does he come out of the whirlpool? What is that one thing that he could do or for himself to come out of this whirlpool?
And see, even if I tell you the way to get out of this room, that would only mean that you emerge intact out of this room. And the entire purpose of the spiritual demolition process has been defeated. Compared to what? How is a very mischievous question. What is there makes us look squarely at the actor. Who is the actor? What's his nature? Now you're looking at the actor. When you say, how does the actor reach a particular goal, as you said, emerge out of the situation, then we are not challenging the actor. We are letting the actor stay as she is, and we are guiding her to emerge out of her predicament, staying as she is. Now that's exactly what the actor wants, to not change. Therefore, all methods and all advices that focus on how to are not only bound to fail, but actually deteriorate the situation. A while back, we were talking of bad teaching. A lot of bad teaching comes from this point. How to be better, how to make the right decisions. 11 ways to choose in a tricky position. So, even if you have taught me how to choose, I, as the misled one, I, as the false one, have remained at my place. What's more, I now have 2 more tricks in my hands to continue with my mischief in an even more vicious way. Is that not so?
Yeah, I got the perspective. Yeah, indeed.
So the ego is not to be reformed or given methods and tricks. The ego is to be introduced to its own reality. The ego needs to look at itself in the mirror and see that it is needlessly both ugly and suffering.
And it takes a lot of courage as well.
It takes a lot of courage if we are accustomed to doing the things the other way. And otherwise, it's a fairly simple thing.
Yeah, and if we have a deep desire to let go of our suffering.
Great. It depends on how dearly you firstly love yourself. If you really want to be free of suffering, then you will do what it takes. Else you will keep finding roundabout routes and such things.
Sure. And you also mentioned that right action is something which gives you joy and contentment.
Yeah.
Now, like the ego is a false self. So what we continue to get misled again is that we consider the momentary gratification as joy and contentment.
Yeah.
So as a seeker, somebody who's not aware, it's simple. And you also said one very profound thing, that if you don't know anything, then life is still easier. Yeah. But if you know some bits of it, and the more you know, the more suffering you have. Yeah. So what is the advice, or what do you guide people from?
First of all, what's false must be called out and kept aside. Joy, the way the word is currently being used, it's been falsely presented as some kind of a synonym of happiness, exaggerated happiness. Joy is not happiness at all. Joy is just freedom. So, in the name of joy, people continue with their false pursuit of fleeting freedom, of fleeting happiness. That doesn't take them anywhere. Joy is a negation of the kind of happiness that comes necessarily with sadness, of the kind of happiness that rides necessarily on tension. And that's the, unfortunately, only kind of happiness that most of us know. Happiness that's always feeling threatened, happiness that's always bordered by, shadowed by the prospect of misery, happiness that needs to be protected. And if we want to act a little spiritual, then we start calling this same petty happiness as joy. And that's what, unfortunately, teachers over the last few decades or in the last century have been teaching us. So the real meaning of Anand, joy, is lost upon us. And the repercussions are horrible. You look at the state of this planet, you look at the pandemic, you look at the mental disintegration of population, the neurosis, the very decline in humanness, which is reflected in all kinds of atrocities today man is inflicting upon various life forms, the depletion of biodiversity, the hacking down of woods, forests, the rivers are gone. And having burnt the planet to ashes, we now want to colonize Mars. And all these kinds of stupidities, they are essentially because of false spirituality. In some sense, everybody is spiritual. It's just that most of us have a wrong spirituality, a wrong philosophy we are living by. And we need a course correction immediately.
Sure. I think one tip that you've given in the book is the right duty is to find a way to help others. And you gave Gandhiji's example of what the world needs. And would you just throw light on that? So the idea, one of the ideas of this session is that people take back something which they can apply in their lives, some words of wisdom or your energy. So what would you help them take back on this?
In context of helping others?
In context of doing one change in our own lives.
No, first of all, we have to realize what our life is like. I can't change something without firstly understanding its processes and its actuality. I want to change something about this ceiling fan. Can I do that firstly?
Without observing.
Without knowing a thing about what magnetism is?
No, not possible.
So first of all, I must know what this thing called my life is. We keep living without knowing a thing about life. We are blinded by names and identities. We keep saying, fine, so this is my house. And that becomes such a
strong identity.
Such a strong, not merely an identity, that becomes a thing taken for granted. But what exactly is a house? We never ask such simple questions to ourselves. What am I doing here? Not that we must run away from our houses, but we at least need to know, right? That's a place we invest so much of ourselves in. So what is this construct called the house? What is it? I go and I work somewhere and I earn from that place. What is this thing called livelihood? What am I doing with all these hours I spend there? So that's the first thing. Firstly, there has to be a very honest, a very ruthless observation of who I am and what I am doing and how I am living. Once that is there, then light starts glimmering on its own. You come to see how much of it needs to be built upon, how much of it needs to be just put aside, and there is, a series of mini mini epiphanic explosions. You keep realizing a thing every hour or so, or every second day or so. There's something that is there. I never noticed it. We don't even look at our faces properly, do we? I mean, we are so busy uh, running this treadmill of life. We hardly have any time to pause and ponder. So that's the first thing that's needed. So I'm sorry I won't be able to give any quick takeaways for people to drive home or carry home. Uh, I'll firstly ask them what this thing called home is.
Which is, I am sure,
Yeah?
I never
The
thought about
saints
it.
have kept asking, where is your real home? Where is your real home? Hmm? What are you doing here? Is this really your home? So how do I give them something to carry home when the word home itself stands very nebulously defined?
Yeah, I'm sure, like me, a lot of us will think about it today. And you've also mentioned, like we always hear in scriptures, our dharma is to liberate, to find moksha. So, this is my personal view and my personal limitation, that liberation is not perceivable with whatever we are. So even if we've only heard from sages or heard in scriptures or read somewhere. So something which is not perceivable. So how do we go towards it? That is our end purpose.
Again, you have returned to the
the
how
action.
to, the how to part.
Okay.
You see, liberation is not a point to go to. If I'm in bondage right now, if I go to some point, I'll be going to that point with all my bondages.
Bonded. Right.
So most people who claim to be liberated are actually liberated beings, so-called liberated beings, with all their bondages. And that's the point. You don't have to focus on liberation. You must focus on your slavery. Because that's one's immediate reality. There are 1,000 things that encircle us, circumscribe us, limit us, prevent us from flying free, from expressing who we truly are. We have to talk about all those things. Liberation as a word, as a concept, is just a utopia. It drugs us. It helps keep our servility in continuation. So I can perfectly entertain myself. Liberation, I'm coming towards you. See, I meditate. See, I do this. I perform that trick, spiritual trick. I sing those kinds of songs, and I visit those particular shrines or pilgrimages. And I do all these things. And even as I am doing all these daily rituals, I'm handcuffed. Prostrating before the deity, I'm handcuffed. Meditating, I'm handcuffed. And one thing I don't want to talk about is the handcuff. Because to that handcuff is linked my identity.
And it's very painful.
It's very painful, and I'm attached to it.
Indeed.
So I don't want to look at my real problem. I just want to keep talking of a utopian solution, which doesn't make sense. And there is just too little emphasis on looking at one's life and firstly, honestly acknowledging where the bondages are, where we really are in shackles. We don't want to look there. It's as if the bulk of humanity has agreed to conspire against itself.
Unknowingly, I think. Unknowingly.
I suspect quite knowingly. And it's a mutual thing, I won't call your bondages out, and you repeat or return the favor. And if I do honestly point out at something, then I'll be called insensitive and crude and out of place and the odd one out and all those things. So to belong to your flock, to your family, to your workplace, to your society,
Or even to the ideology,
or to
like
your
all of us are
ideology,
connected to it.
you have to necessarily remain blind to something. So it just can't be ignorance. I see a lot of deliberate connivance in this. And it's costing us very, very dearly.
So we got a question by Ruby. How does and what means the karma theory is different from others? There is karma yoga in Bhagavad Gita. So she's asking what is the correlation and how is it different from what is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Why she's asking this is, in our daily routines, can we really be able to come over all bondages and set us free?
First of all, there is only the karma yoga in Bhagavad Gita, that is the real thing. Besides that, if there exists anything called a karma theory, I neither know about it nor intend to know about it. I'm not saying that the real elucidation of karma has been offered only by Sri Krishna. What I'm saying is that wherever a real explanation has been offered, it is just an echo of the Bhagavad Gita itself.
Yeah.
So if I name the Bhagavad Gita, I'm actually naming all the authentic places together. So if there is something that's a divergence with what Krishna has said, or if there is something that claims to be more innovative and more contemporary, I would politely want to dismiss it.
Sure.
So if someone is interested in karma, chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 of Bhagavad Gita suffice.
Sure. There's another question. How does karma impact our soul?
That's like asking, how does alpha impact gamma beta square? First of all, I have to define these variables, right? So do we understand what this thing called soul is?
I think the understanding is only what people know, and I'm not sure if that is the right understanding.
So we don't need to ask, how does karma bear upon the soul? We first need to ask, is there something called a soul? What is this concept of the soul? Does this have any substance to itself, or is it just a mental figment? There's nothing called the soul. Soul is just an idea. There is the truth and there is the mind. And karma belongs to the domain of mind. The mind has to act in a way that takes it to the truth. There is only these two. Any third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth entities you come up with just belong to the second one, that is mind. In the mind is the entire universe and all the ideas, good, bad, subtle, stupid, all kinds of things, they are there in the mind. So the thing called spirit or soul is just an idea in the mind, nothing more than that. There are only two realities, right? The truth and the mind. And of these two realities, the second one must come to see itself as false. And therefore, what remains then is only the one truth. And that one truth, in the absence of any second, does not then warrant to be called even as one. It is then called Advait, non-dual. So soul, spirit, and this, that, and flying serpents and this, that, I don't know, ghosts, witches. stories.
And this is my one of my questions. So I was reading the chapter, very powerful. And what you said, that you can only be a rebellion when you know that you are in the hands of you comfortably in the hands of a father, and you talk about God and Niradhara, and we have our own interpretations of God in different ways. Would you want to just share with us? You'll again ask me that you're going to the how, but so how do we touch upon the Niradhara? How do we? I know it's only air is there because you start feeling and you become receptive to it. But I'm saying, how do we come out of this whole shell of something being something else and not experiencing the divine?
No, that's another of those bromides. Trying to experience the divine. There's nothing called an experience of the
So
divine.
assurance, when you said in your chapter, the assurance,
Is there assurance in the way we are currently living?
there is not.
So then why don't we simply say, this is not what I must have, therefore I discard it?
Actually, one of the things why people are not able to discard is because there are so many people towards that.
Is there assurance in that crowd?
No, it's not.
Then why are you looking at those so many people? Then if there is no assurance in their company, why do you even look at those so many people? Why do you even want to talk about them? Of what use are they that you allow them to crowd your opinion? I'm not talking of being adventurous and cavalier and no, I'm just talking plain sense. All these things that we consider integral to our security, are they really helping us? If they are indeed helping us, I have nothing to say. We talked about relaxing in the lap of the Niradhar. All the adhars, all the bases, the foundations that we have currently provided to ourselves, are they even functioning? How much of security are they really providing us? I say, if they are making us secure, let's stick to them. But if they're not making us secure, let's try something else out, and you try something else. First of all, you have to make a little space, and that would involve rejection. That would involve that discarding something. I'm leaning upon something, and that thing I'm leaning upon is leaning upon something else. How secure does that make me? And I do not know what the whole thing is ultimately leaning upon.
It does not.
That the result is constant anxiety. I think I have a life that's well sorted. I think I have a security system in place. I think I can call someone up and ask for help when I'm distressed. Does that work? If that does work, happy. If that does not, then let's change a few things.
Sure. There's one last question. Can any karma remove the ignorance of the mind that falsifies itself, and so that one truth remains? Then why so much focus on right karma? I think you've already answered in
You see, the mind has both the capacities. The mind has the very unfortunate capacity to keep itself deluded. And the mind also has the uncanny ability to never lose its truth, even if it's constantly choosing the false. Still, somewhere, that little grain of truth will always remain. So you can always look at your falseness. Irrespective of how deeply steeped you are in falseness, still it's possible to stand in front of the mirror and say, I know my reality. There is nobody who is totally oblivious of his reality. If there does exist someone who has no idea at all of how misled or false he is, then he cannot even be helped. Even to help someone, you rely upon his own inner understanding, or at least the ability, the potential to understand given the right conditions. So we all know. It's not as if we do not know where life is false and where things are rotten and where we are in bondage and where our pain points lie. We all know. It's just that we we have become adept at deceiving ourselves, and it's become the norm.
Because it's all
become
around us, so it doesn't bother
Yes.
us.
We greet each other with smiling faces, knowing fully well that I'm lying to you, you are lying to me. None of us are actually smiling. We know fully well, and still we keep replicating that behavior, the selfie life.
Selfie life, yeah, indeed. I'm sure. I think what you shared, which I had obviously anticipated, would be something which is more deeper than your words. And I got that point that we've never thought that which is the house we live in, what is the home. So I think there's a lot of questioning that needs to happen.
What the knowers have advised us is home is the place you can come to a final relaxation in. It's your final settlement. And unless a place, a position, a spot, a point is your place of final settlement, do not even call it home. Call it a tavern, call it a hotel, a motel, anything. But it's it's an inn. You check in, you check out. You sit there as one sits in a tavern. You take a few drinks, you log out. But the word home, in one way, it's not at all bearing upon the topic at hand, the karma book. On the other hand, karma is all about acting in a way that takes you home.
Right.
Right karma is all about acting in a way that takes you home. So it's a beautiful and perplexing word. Home. Where are we getting settled? Where are we trying to find refuge? Is that our final destination? Is that our destiny? Is that the thing we were born for? So these are uncomfortable questions, I know. But if we want to really live authentically, we must ask those questions.
And we need to ask them to ourselves.
We need to ask them to ourselves.
Great. I think that is very enlightening. And I'm sure I'll reread the book because I read it twice, but I think there's more to it. And every time you read it, there's something else which comes back to you as a reader.
Sometimes when I feel like reading my books over and over again, and I feel I don't know what I've written here. So I can resonate with what you just said.
Yeah. And because after reading a few chapters, I really got lost, and then I went back and
I get lost.
So okay, so I'm not too apart from guidance. So it was a wonderful talk, and this is personally, I'm on the path, and this is something very close to me.
I'm glad.
Yes, thank you, and really a wonderful session. Thanks to everybody for being so patient. Thanks to all our City Book Leaders audience, because of whom we continue to bring in new themes. And this time we had Acharya ji, who is full of wisdom, and what he shared with us. I think even if we take one point in our lives and apply, there'll be a huge difference. So thanks to you, and do read the book, and please buy it. I think it's a copy that needs to be kept and reread and reread. Thank you. Have a great evening and a good weekend. Namaste.